Week 2 of the fantasy football season, and here's the top 12 DST defensive rankings going into the week. The first defense I got ranked going into the week's the Los Angeles Rams. So the Rams week 1 wasn't a great one for them. 31 points allowed, but they still created turnovers and caused a little havoc for Josh Allen early in that ball game. Rams 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, and 2 fumble recoveries. And now here in week 2, Marcus Mariota and the young Atlanta Falcon teams coming to Los Angeles. And this Ram team, they're not going to be happy after getting embarrassed nationally in the opening game of the season here. And Marcus Mariota and the Atlanta Falcons, they played a tough ball game, but they lost a tough one in that one. So I think they're going to get to Mariota early and often. I could see a bunch of turnovers from this Ram defense, and I could see them holding down this offense as well, anywhere from 10 to 20 points. I think we see a few turnovers, even a house call in this one for Los Angeles, and they're going to bounce back with a huge defensive performance. But right now I got them in number 1, even though there's a couple teams I think that could take the number 1 spot. But I just like the matchup this week. I like that at home, and they want to get back on track after getting embarrassed week 1. The second defense, DST units, the Cleveland Browns. So the Browns in week 1, they didn't do much versus Baker Mayfield and the Carolina Panthers, but they got the job done. 24 points allowed and 4 sacks in that game. But right here, I'm very surprised this Brown team still available in 68% of fantasy leagues. They got a cupcake matchup at the versus the New York Jets in the dog pound in the home opener here for Cleveland, and the Browns trying to go 2-0, believe it or not, to start the season. So right now, they could get to the quarterback. That's obvious. Myles Garrett, one of the best pass rushers in the league. Jadeveon Clowney, he's still there. Denzel Ward, a good corner. And Joe Flacco's the starting quarterback for the New York Jets, where once you get a hand on him, he's going nowhere. Flacco obviously is immobile. I think Mike White should start for this New York Jet team because obviously he could stretch the field and get the ball to some of his playmakers. But the Jets offense in week 1 didn't look good versus Baltimore. And I think this Cleveland Brown defense is going to put a hurting on Joe Flacco and hold this Jet team down to a low-scoring game. So I like the Browns a lot this week here. And I got them in number 2. Number 3, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Steelers came out with a huge week 1 statement on the defensive end versus the Cincinnati Bengals. They made Joe Burrow look like a mediocre to poor quarterback in that one. 20 points allowed, 7 sacks, 4 interceptions, a fumble recovery, pick 6 by Minkah Fitzpatrick, a block kick by Minkah Fitzpatrick. And right now, they got a good matchup here, I believe, versus the New England Patriots. The Patriots offense were idle. They didn't do anything versus the Miami Dolphins. And Mac Jones is banged up as well with a back injury, even though there is a good chance he still could play in the game as Mac Jones. Even if he does play, it doesn't. I think this Steelers defense could pounce on whoever is going to be the quarterback over here for New England. This defense, they're a ball-hawking defense. I know TJ Watt's banged up with a pec injury, and obviously he's not going to play in this one, but the Steelers still could make plays in the secondary. They still could get to the quarterback. And Mac Jones as well, he's a quarterback. Yeah, he's got a little mobility, but not much, where I think if they could get a hand on him a few times, if he's going to play in this ball game, they're going to put him to the turf. And the run game over there, we'll see what they could do. We saw Joe Mixon have a good ball game, but that was more receiving than rushing the football. We know they got 2 physical backs in Damian Harris. Andre Stevenson, he is the New England Patriots. But I think this Steelers defense goes out there and puts in another great performance. And I got them in number 3 this week. Number 4, I got the Buffalo Bills. So the Bills, they look great, besides Cooper Kupp in week 1, where he shredded them for 128 yards on 13 catches. But this Bill defense could get to the quarterback. And already Von Miller paying huge dividends. He was in the backfield all day in that ball game, and Matthew Stafford was running for his life. So in week 1, 7 sacks, 3 interceptions, and only 10 points allowed. And right now, they got a great matchup versus the Tennessee Titans that lost to the New York Giants. And they didn't get much going, was this Tennessee team. They got off to an early start, and then second half of that ball game, for the most part, the Giants defense bottled them up. So only imagine what this Buffalo Bill defense could do to the Tennessee Titans. Ryan Tannehill, I don't think he's that great of a quarterback. He's a mediocre quarterback, in my opinion, and he didn't really hook up with his top 2 targets. Robert Woods, only 2 targets in that game. Treylon Burks didn't do much. I know Phillips, the undrafted free agent wide receiver, had 66 receiving yards. And Derrick Henry was shut down, so this is the first of a 2 Monday Night Football game here in week 2. And I think the Bills come out early and often, and they're going to get to Tannehill at least 3 or 4 times in this one with a few sacks and create a few turnovers and hold this offense down to a low score total as well. So I got them in number 4. Number 5 this week, the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Cincinnati Bengals, last week they didn't do anything in terms of fantasy football on the defensive end of things. 17 points allowed with a sack versus Mitchell Trubisky and this Pittsburgh Steelers offense. So right here, they got a great matchup versus the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys all banged up. Tyron Smith, obviously, he's out pretty much the whole season since training camp, so that's a big loss on the O-line. Connor McGovern, he got hurt as well in that ball game, and most importantly, Dak Prescott broke his thumb in the Week 1 ball game. So this Cowboy team's going to run out Cooper Rush most likely here in this game. And I know Rush last season had a 300-yard game versus the Vikings and got the victory, but this Cowboy team, they're in shambles. The offensive line's banged up, Dak Prescott hurt, and they just don't have many playmakers besides CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz who can catch the football and make something happen. Ezekiel Elliott, I don't think he has a good game. And I think this Bengal team, they're going to get to Rush a few times. They want to bounce back. They don't want to start 0-2 this season. So going into Dallas here, Joe Burrow and this Bengal team is going to be ready. And I think this defense has a great performance where they're going to get a few sacks, cause a few turnovers, and hold this Cowboy offense down to a low score total as well, probably anywhere mid-teens, maybe the 20s, even lower. We saw the Cowboys only score 3 points versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Week 1, the next defense, the Green Bay Packers. So the Packers have a good matchup versus Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears, even though the Bears pulled the upset victory in Week 1 versus the Niners, 19-10. And the Packers was just couldn't get anything going. Their receivers couldn't catch in Week 1. And the defense, they didn't play horrible, but only 1 sack and 23 points allowed versus that Viking offense. So right here, Week 2, Sunday Night Football versus a bad offense with the Chicago Bears here. I think the Packers are going to get to Fields. I think they're going to shut down the running game as well over there for the Chicago Bear team. And I think the Packers bounce back with a vengeance. I think Rodgers has a good game. I think this defense holds the Bears offense down. And I see them getting a few turnovers and a few sacks, and I got them at number 6. Number 7, the San Francisco 49ers. So the Niners in Week 1, a little disappointment. I thought they would be better, especially in those rain conditions versus Justin Fields and a poor Bear offense. 19 points allowed, 2 sacks, and an into. But right here, they got a Week 2 matchup versus the Seattle Seahawks. And Geno Smith, he went out there and he played a good ball game versus the Denver Broncos to get the 17-16 victory. But Smith, couple plays broke down, and he got lucky on a couple TDs, I think, in that ball game. So I think the Niners are at home. After a tough loss in Week 1, this defense is going to come out riled up in a divisional matchup. And I think they're going to get to Geno Smith a few times. And I think they're going to cause some turnovers as well. I don't think Geno is going to get away in this one without turning the ball over. And the Niners, home game, trying to get back on track. And I think they do it. So I got them in number 7. Number 8, the Denver Broncos. So the Broncos, their defense, they made a couple plays in that Week 1 matchup versus Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks. 17 points allowed, 2 sacks, a fumble recovery in that one. But right here, I like the matchup a lot in the Broncos home opener versus Davis Mills and the Houston Texans. And the Texans, they were mediocre in Week 1, scoring 20 points versus a pretty decent Colt unit. But right now, I think this Bronco team, they're going to get to Davis Mills early and often. And they don't want to start off 0-2 as well. And their defense should be one of their strengths. And right now, I like the way the defense played for the most part. Just a couple breakdowns in the secondary on broken plays is where the Seahawks did their damage in that ball game. But the Broncos here at number 8 this week, I think they have a good game and they get to the quarterback and make a few plays. Number 9 defense I got ranked this week is the Indianapolis Colts. So the Colts in Week 1, they didn't do much in terms of fantasy football. 20 points allowed, 3 sacks, and a fumble recovery, which was a disappointment at a Houston Texan team that obviously coming into the year, we didn't think they're going to have a good offense. And they did shut down the run game over there with Indianapolis, but they got hurt through the air a little bit. But right here in Week 2 with Jacksonville, they're going to come out in this one and I think have a good ball game. Trevor Lawrence, he was all right in Week 1. Him and his new weapons were hitting a little bit. Christian Kirk had a good game. Zay Jones had a decent game. And Travis Edney had a decent ball game as well. But I think this Colt defense comes out and has a good ball game in this one. And I think they could have a top 9 performance. And I got them in number 9. They'll get a few sacks. I think they're good for a few turnovers. And they'll have a bounce-back ball game. Number 10, the Tampa Bay Bucks. So the Bucks, they caused havoc in Week 1 at the Dallas Cowboys, hurting Dak Prescott, breaking his thumb. and holding that offense down to 3 points. So right here, great fantasy day, 3 points allowed, 4 sacks, and an into in that one for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And here in week 2 with the New Orleans Saints, this is a division ball game. Jameis Winston, wants to come out and have a good ball game versus former team. But I think this Buck defense, they're going to be riled up and ready to go in this one. Last few seasons, they've had the Bucks number, including last season. I believe they swept them in the 2 ball games they played. So right here, this defense wants to come out. They want to make a statement in this one at the New Orleans Saints. And I think this season here, this is the Tampa Bay revenge tour after last season getting bounced around in the playoffs early by the Los Angeles Rams, because they got the pieces to win a championship, I believe, is Tampa Bay. And this defense here, they want to send a message, I believe, to the Saints and Jameis Winston. Now, maybe last season you got us, but this season, it's a whole different ball game. So right now, division matchup, great defensive line over here with this Tampa Bay Buck team. And Todd Bowles, as a head coach now, even has more of a blueprint on this defense here. Even though I know he was the defensive coordinator last season, but now he's more about defense and running the football. And I think the Bucks have a good ball game here. And I got them in number 10, number 11, the New England Patriots. So the Patriots, I thought last week would have had a better ball game versus Tua Tagovailoa and that Miami Dolphin offense, but they didn't do much. 14 points allowed, though, only, but 3 sacks only. So a decent game in terms of real-life football, but fantasy football, that was only good for 4 fantasy points. Week 2 with the Pittsburgh Steelers here. The Steelers, not the greatest offenses. Their offensive line is banged up. Mitchell Trubisky, not a great quarterback. Mediocre to a poor quarterback is Mitchell Trubisky. And I think this Pat defensive line can make a few plays on Trubisky, get to him, and I think they're good for anywhere 7 to 10 fantasy points. The only thing is, I don't know what you're going to see from this New England Patriot offense. Mac Jones is banged up. He might not play in this ball game, and their offense might put their defense in a bad position in this one. But I still think with the offensive line problems in Pittsburgh and Mitchell Trubisky, just a mid-quarterback, I think this Patriot defense still could finish the day with a top 12 performance. And I got them in number 11 here, and the 12th and final defense I'm ranking this week is the Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens had a good week 1 versus a weak New York Jet offense, where they went out there and they made plays on Joe Flacco and this team. 9 points allowed, only 3 sacks, an interception, and a fumble recovery. So right here, week 2, a little tougher of a matchup with the Miami Dolphins coming to town, who obviously have good playmakers in Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Chase Edmonds is a decent option out of the backfield. But right here, I think they could shut the running game down, because Chase Edmonds, he's not really a workhorse running back where he's going to get 20 carries and run between the tackles all the time. He's more of a guy, you spread him out, get him in the open field, and a lot of jet sweeps or a lot of sweeps in general or counter runs they want to run here. So I think Baltimore, they could have the advantage of holding the run game down a little bit here in this ball game and make Tua try to throw the ball a lot of times, and that's where Tua could get in trouble, and that's where Baltimore could feast and get a few turnovers in this game. So I think this ball game could be the mid-teens, low 20s between these two teams, where both defenses have decent performances. I don't think Baltimore's going to have a monster ball game, but it wouldn't surprise me as well to see him for some reason have a touchdown in this one. But right now I got him in number 12, so that's the top 12 defense DST units I'm ranking here for week 2 of the fantasy football season.